42 million people watched a billionaire wrap his hands around his pregnant wife's throat. At a charity gala, surrounded by hundreds of guests, she was 8 months pregnant. Security cameras caught everything, but here's what nobody expected. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She picked up her phone, downloaded a recording app, and called him back. What she did next brought a billion-dollar empire to its knees. This is the story of a woman who was told, "I own you," and decided those would be the last words her husband ever said to her without consequences. Lesson and value. This story carries one powerful truth. The door was always unlocked. She was her own jailer. The moment she stopped asking for permission to save herself was the moment she became free. If you or someone you know is trapped in silence, remember, asking for help is not weakness. It is the bravest thing you will ever do. This is not just a story about abuse. It is about reclaiming your identity, your voice, and your power. It is proof that no amount of money can silence the truth forever, and that one person's courage can break a cycle that spans generations. If this story moved you, leave a comment and tell someone who needs to hear it. Hit like so this message reaches further. Share it, because you never know who is listening in silence, waiting for a sign that they are not alone. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and stay with us. Great stories change lives. Let's change them together. The steady beep of a hospital monitor filled the quiet room. Tori's eyes fluttered open. Her vision was blurry at the edges. Everything felt wrong. The light was too bright. The air tasted metallic. Her throat burned like she had swallowed broken glass. "My baby." She whispered the words before she even knew where she was. "Is my baby okay?" A face appeared above her. Kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Sarah Hoffman. Tori recognized her obstetrician through the fog clouding her mind. "Your daughter is stable, Tori." Dr. Hoffman placed a cold ultrasound wand on Tori's swollen belly. The screen beside the bed flickered to life, showing the outline of a tiny body curled inside her. "You, however, have sustained significant trauma." Tori's hand moved to her neck. She touched the skin gently and winced. The bruising felt raised and tender beneath her fingertips. She traced the pattern. She did it again, and again. She could not stop touching her throat, as if confirming that what had happened was real, that it had actually happened, that her husband had actually wrapped his hands around her neck and squeezed until the world went dark. The baby kicked, a strong, insistent movement against her ribs. Tori exhaled slowly. Her daughter was alive. They were both alive. "Mrs. Ashford, there are 2 detectives here who need to speak with you." Dr. Hoffman's voice was gentle but firm. Do you feel up to answering some questions?" Tori nodded. The motion sent pain shooting through her neck and down her spine. 2 people entered the room. A woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes, a younger man with tired eyes and a notebook already open. The woman pulled a chair close to the bed while the man set up a recording device on the side table. "Mrs. Ashford, my name is Detective Martinez. This is Detective Brooks. We need to ask you about what happened at the Children's Cancer Gala last night." The older detective's voice was professional, but not unkind. "Can you tell us what you remember?" "Last night. The gala." Tori's mind tried to piece together the fragments. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, music. Derek's face twisted with rage. His hands on her throat. "I don't." She paused, swallowing carefully around the pain. "It happened so fast. Take your time." Detective Martinez said. Tori closed her eyes. Everyone saw. The thought crashed over her like a wave. She had been strangled in front of hundreds of people, In a ballroom full of cameras and witnesses, there was no denying it, no explaining it away, no saying she fell down the stairs or walked into a door or that it was all just a misunderstanding. 17 witnesses have already given statements, Detective Brooks said quietly. The venue's security footage captured everything. Tori opened her eyes. Tears spilled down her cheeks without permission. The door burst open. A man in his early 60s rushed in, his salt and pepper hair disheveled, his shirt untucked. James Caldwell stopped dead when he saw his daughter in the hospital bed. His face went white, then red, then completely expressionless. That last expression was the one that frightened Tori the most, because she had never seen it on her father's face before. It was not anger, it was something colder than anger, something more final. Baby girl. The words came out broken. Tori had not heard that nickname in years. Not since before she married Derek. Not since she became Mrs. Ashford and left her old life behind. Daddy. Her voice cracked. He, in front of everyone. I cannot. James moved to the bed and took her hand carefully, avoiding the IV line. His grip was warm and solid, real. She held onto it like a lifeline. I am going to fix this, he said. The way he said it was not a promise. It was a statement of fact, like saying the sun would rise tomorrow. The detectives exchanged glances and quietly gathered their equipment. We will come back later, Detective Martinez said. Get some rest, Mrs. Ashford. After they left, the room fell silent except for the monitor's persistent beeping. James held his daughter's hand and stared at the bruises on her throat. His jaw worked back and forth, but no words came out. He did not need to say anything. Tori could see it in his eyes. Another person appeared in the doorway. Rebecca Morrison, Tori's best friend since college, stood holding a tablet computer. Her mascara was smudged, and her usually perfect hair hung loose around her shoulders. Tori. Becca's voice trembled. I am so sorry. I did not want to show you this. But it is everywhere. She approached the bed reluctantly and held out the tablet. It was posted 4 hours ago. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Everyone is sharing it. Tori took the tablet with shaking hands. The video was already playing. Security footage from last night. Black and white, but crystal clear. The camera showed a hallway outside the ballroom. Tori appeared first in the frame, one hand on her pregnant belly, walking slowly in her evening gown. Then Derek followed, his tuxedo perfectly tailored, his face twisted with rage. Tori watched herself turn to face him on the screen. She could not hear the audio, but she remembered every word. His hands reached for her throat. His fingers wrapped around her neck and squeezed. Her eyes went wide on the screen. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her pregnant belly was clearly visible, pressing against Derek as she tried to push him away. He squeezed harder. Her hands clawed at his wrists. Her knees began to buckle. 2 waiters ran into frame. They grabbed Derek's arms and pulled him backward. He released her throat. His face showed no remorse, only fury. The video ended. Below it, a number glowed in red. 42 million views. Tori dropped the tablet onto the bed. Her hands were shaking violently. There is more, Becca said quietly. His lawyers gave a statement an hour ago. She picked up the tablet and swiped to a news article. Derek's attorney stood on the steps of their mansion, microphones thrust toward him. Mr. Ashford deeply regrets the altercation that occurred last evening. The lawyer read from a prepared statement. His wife has been experiencing severe pregnancy-related emotional instability for several months. Mr. Ashford is committed to getting his family the help they need during this difficult time. Tori felt her father's hand tighten around hers. The video cut to Margaret Ashford, Derek's mother. She wore a cream-colored suit and pearl earrings. Her face was composed sympathetic, the picture of dignified concern. Tori has been very difficult throughout this pregnancy, Margaret said, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. We have all been worried about her mental state. Derek has been under tremendous pressure trying to care for her. They were already spinning the narrative, already making her the villain, the unstable wife, the emotional pregnant woman, the burden. Tori's phone, sitting on the bedside table, began to ring. Private number. She stared at it. 4 rings, 5. James reached for it, but Tori picked it up first. She pressed answer and held it to her ear. Come home, Victoria. Derek's voice was calm, measured, the voice he used with investors and board members, the voice that fooled everyone. We will forget this happened. I will tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. We will move forward. Tori's hand moved to her throat again. She touched the bruises. Real. Undeniable. No, she whispered. I am sorry. I did not hear that. His tone sharpened. What did you say? I said no. Silence on the other end. Then a laugh, short and cold, like ice cracking. You do not get to say no to me, Victoria. I own you. I own that baby. You will come home, or I will make sure you lose everything. The line went dead. Tori lowered the phone slowly. She looked at her father and her best friend. Both of them were watching her with identical expressions of concern and barely contained fury. I am not going back, Tori said. Her voice was stronger now, clearer. Something had shifted in her when Derek said those words. I own you. Something had broken, and something else had taken its place. I am never going back. James leaned forward and kissed his daughter's forehead gently. You will not have to. I promise you that. After Becca left to get coffee, and James stepped into the hallway to make phone calls, Tori was alone for the first time since waking up. She picked up her phone, stared at it. Then she opened the App Store and searched for call recording applications. She downloaded one, tested it, made sure it worked. She did not tell anyone. She did not ask permission. She did not wait for her father or her lawyer or anyone else to suggest it. She just did it, quietly, methodically, because she knew Derek would call again. He always called again. He always needed the last word, always needed to remind her who was in control. Next time, she would be ready. Next time, his own words would become the weapon she used against him. Tori set the phone down on the bedside table. She placed both hands on her belly and felt her daughter kick. We are going to be okay, she whispered. I do not know how yet, but we are going to be okay. The monitor beeped. The rain that had been threatening all morning finally began to fall, tapping gently against the hospital window. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse apartment that cost more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes, Derek Ashford was pouring himself a glass of whiskey and calling his lawyers, confident that his wife would come crawling back. He had no idea what was coming. 6 hours before the ambulance, 6 hours before the security footage, 6 hours before 42 million people watched her husband try to kill her, Tori stood in front of her walk-in closet, trying to decide what to wear. The Children's Cancer Gala was one of the biggest charity events of the year. She had been planning to attend for months, back when she still cared about these things, back when she still felt like herself. Are you ready yet? Derek's voice came from the bedroom. We are going to be late. Tori pulled out a navy blue maternity gown. It had long sleeves and a modest neckline. Safe, appropriate. Comfortable enough for a woman who was 8 months pregnant and whose back ached constantly and whose ankles were swollen and who had not slept through the night in weeks. Derek appeared in the closet doorway. His tuxedo was already on, perfectly fitted by a tailor who charged more for a single suit than most families spent on rent in a year. He looked at the dress in her hands, and his jaw tightened. That dress makes you look enormous, he said. Change. I am 8 months pregnant, Derek. I am enormous. His eyes narrowed. The temperature in the room dropped. Don't be difficult. Pick something else. Tori hung the navy dress back up. Her hands were already shaking. She knew this mood. The tightness around his eyes, the clipped words, the way his jaw locked. Warning signs she had learned to read over 3 years of marriage. A language of danger that only she could translate. She pulled out a black dress, too formal, a burgundy one, too bright, a gray one, too dull. Jesus Christ, Victoria. Derek stepped into the closet. His cologne was sharp, expensive, overwhelming. It is not that complicated. Just pick a dress. Tori flinched at his voice. She reached for a champagne-colored gown and held it up. It was elegant, understated, the kind of dress that would photograph well without drawing too much attention. Derek looked at it for a long moment, then nodded once. That is better? Hurry up. He left the closet. Tori changed into the champagne dress with shaking hands. It took her 3 tries to zip it up over her pregnant belly. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Hollow eyes, tight smile, a stranger wearing her face. She used to be someone. She used to be Victoria Caldwell. She used to run a nonprofit that helped underprivileged kids access education. She used to run marathons. 3 in 2 years, training for a 4th when she met Derek at a fundraiser. He had been charming that night, magnetic, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. She should have known. The charm was the trap. It always was. The drive to the gala was silent. Derek's driver navigated through evening traffic while Derek checked his phone. Tori watched the city lights blur past the tinted window. She touched her belly and felt her daughter kick. Strong, insistent, alive. I am sorry, she thought. I am so sorry I chose him. The car pulled up to the hotel entrance. Photographers lined the red carpet 3 deep. Camera flashes exploded like lightning as the door opened. Derek's hand found Tori's elbow as they stepped out. To anyone watching, it looked protective, gentle. The devoted husband helping his pregnant wife. Only Tori felt his fingers digging into her flesh, hard enough to leave marks beneath the fabric. Smile, he whispered through his teeth. Look happy. Tori smiled. The cameras loved it. Mrs. Derek Ashford, pregnant and glowing. The perfect billionaire's wife. Tomorrow, these photos would appear in society pages and celebrity gossip sites and Instagram feeds across the country. The beautiful couple. The fairy tale life. Nobody ever photographed what happened behind closed doors. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers cast warm light over hundreds of guests, women in designer gowns that cost more than most cars, men in custom tuxedos drinking champagne that cost more per glass than a week's groceries for a normal family. Everyone who was anyone in the city had shown up for this event. Margaret Ashford appeared from the crowd. Derek's mother wore white silk and diamonds. Her hair was perfectly styled, her posture rigid, her smile as practiced as a politician's. She air-kissed Tori's cheeks without actually touching her skin. Darling, you are. Margaret paused, looking Tori up and down with an expression that cataloged every flaw, glowing. The word hung between them like a blade. What Margaret meant was something entirely different. You are fat. You are embarrassing. You are not good enough for my son. You are not good enough for this family. Thank you, Margaret, Tori said quietly. She had learned long ago that any other response would be used against her. Derek's hand was still on her elbow, steering her through the crowd. Controlling where she went, who she talked to, how long she stayed in any conversation. She was not a person, At this party, she was a prop, an accessory, something to be displayed and managed. Then Tori saw someone across the room, and her face lit up genuinely for the first time that evening. Marcus Webb, an investigative journalist she had worked with years ago, back when she ran her own nonprofit, back when she had her own career and her own identity, back when she was still Victoria Caldwell. Marcus! She waved before she could stop herself. He made his way over, smiling warmly. He was in his late 30s, sharp-eyed, the kind of journalist who noticed everything and forgot nothing. Tori, it has been too long. How are you? I am good. Really good. She felt Derek's grip tighten on her arm, but she ignored it. For just one moment, she wanted to be herself. How is the journalism world treating you? Busy. I am working on a piece about corporate accountability right now. Some fascinating stuff. Marcus gestured to her belly. When are you due? 6 weeks. It is a girl. Congratulations. Are you going to go back to nonprofit work after she is born? Tori's eyes lit up. This was the first time in months someone had asked about her own plans, her own future. Not just the baby, or the marriage, or Derek's latest business deal. Someone was asking what Victoria Caldwell wanted. Maybe. I have been thinking about it. There is so much work that needs to be done in youth education, and I really miss. My wife is tired. Derek appeared at her side like a shadow. His smile was tight, controlled, the smile he used when he was furious, but surrounded by witnesses. Pregnancy brain. You know how it is? She does not know what she's saying. Actually, I was just... Tori started. Derek's hand moved from her elbow to her upper arm, his fingers pressed into the muscle hard enough to leave bruises. Hard enough that she gasped. But softly, so that only she and Derek heard it. Excuse us, Marcus. Nice to see you. He pulled Tori away from the conversation. She stumbled slightly, her center of gravity thrown off by her pregnant belly. Derek did not slow down. I need to use the restroom, Tori said when they were far enough from Marcus. Fine. Don't take forever. She made her way through the crowd toward the hallway that led to the bathrooms. The noise of the gala faded behind her. Her heels clicked on marble floors. The hallway was quieter here, cooler, the sounds of the party muffled by thick walls. She pushed open the restroom door and locked herself in a stall. Her hands were shaking again. She took deep breaths, trying to calm the racing of her heart. The baby kicked repeatedly, as if sensing her mother's distress. It is okay, Tori whispered, rubbing her belly in slow circles. It is okay. We are okay. She did not believe her own words. She had not believed them in a very long time. After a few minutes, she emerged from the stall. She washed her hands and checked her reflection in the mirror. Makeup still perfect, hair still in place, the bruise forming on her upper arm hidden beneath the champagne fabric. On the outside, she looked fine. She always looked fine. Tori stepped back into the hallway. Derek was waiting there. Her stomach dropped. He was leaning against the marble wall with his arms crossed. His bow tie was slightly loosened. He had been drinking. She could tell by the slight glaze in his eyes, the flush on his cheeks, the way he held himself just a fraction too carefully. You made me look like an idiot, he said. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous, talking to that reporter about going back to work, like you have any idea what you are talking about. I was just making conversation, Derek. He is an old friend. I do not care who he is. You do not get to have opinions in public. You do not get to contradict me. You do not get to talk about your little charity project like it matters. I was not contradicting you. I just... Shut up. He stepped closer. His shadow fell over her. He was 6'2" and had 80 pounds on her, and she was 8 months pregnant with swollen ankles and a center of gravity that made it hard to stand straight. She had never felt smaller. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a wife who cannot keep her mouth shut, who acts like she is still some nobody running a failed charity? Derek, people are right inside. They can hear his hand shot out and grabbed her throat. Tori's back hit the cold marble wall. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. The chandelier overhead swayed slightly, casting dancing shadows across the hallway. Derek's fingers pressed into her windpipe, not gradually, not with warning. He went from 0 to full force in less than a second. She could not breathe. She clawed at his hands, trying to pry them away. Her nails scratched at his wrists. Her feet scrambled for purchase on the smooth marble floor. The baby kicked frantically inside her, each movement like a tiny scream. Derek's face was inches from hers. His breath smelled like whiskey and hatred. His eyes were black holes. "You are nothing without me." He squeezed harder. Tori's vision started to blur. Gray spots appeared at the edges, multiplying, spreading. Her knees buckled, but Derek's grip held her up against the wall, pinned there like a butterfly on a board. She was dying. She was dying in a marble hallway at a charity gala, 8 months pregnant, in a champagne-colored dress that her husband had picked out for her. And the last thing she would ever see would be his face. Then voices, running footsteps, the sound of shoes on marble. "Hey, stop. Someone call 911. 2 waiters appeared, young men in white shirts and black vests. They grabbed Derek's arms and yanked him backward with force. His hands released Tori's throat. She crumpled to the floor, gasping, choking. The air rushed back into her lungs like fire. Her hands went to her belly immediately, checking, feeling, pressing. The baby kicked. Thank God. The baby was still moving, still alive, still fighting. People crowded into the hallway. Someone was calling for an ambulance, and someone else was taking photos with their phone. Derek was being held back by 3 men now, all of them struggling to control him. His face was red. His eyes were wild. He was not sorry. He was not ashamed. He was furious that he had been interrupted. Tori looked up through tears. She saw Margaret Ashford standing at the edge of the growing crowd. Derek's mother had her phone out, held up, at chest level. She was recording. Not calling for help, not rushing to her daughter-in-law's side, not trying to stop her son. She was recording the aftermath, filming Tori on the floor, filming Derek, being restrained. Their eyes met for just a moment. Margaret's expression was blank, empty. The face of a woman who had seen violence before and had learned to simply watch it happen. Margaret lowered her phone slowly and put it in her purse. Then everything went dark. Tori woke in the hospital bed again. Morning light filtered through the window, painting the room in pale gold. The monitor beeped its steady rhythm. Her throat ached with a deep, bruised pain that pulsed with every heartbeat. Her baby was still moving, still alive. Someone was sitting in the chair beside her bed. Her father. He was awake, staring at his hands. He looked like he had not slept at all. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, swound, dark circles under his eyes. He looked 10 years older than he had yesterday. "Dad," Tori whispered. James looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck." She tried to smile, but even that small movement hurt. "How long have you been here? All night. I was not going to leave you alone." Tori reached for the cup of water on the bedside table. James handed it to her carefully, steadying it in her shaking hands. She sipped slowly, the cool liquid soothing her damaged throat. "The police want another statement," James said. "But I told them it could wait. You need rest." Tori set down the water cup. She had spent all night drifting in and out of consciousness, and during those waking hours in the dark, she had been preparing for this conversation, rehearsing it, knowing it had to happen. "Dad, I need to tell you something, okay?" This was not the first time. James went very still. His hands, which had been resting on his knees, curled into fists. His breathing changed. Everything about him became rigid, coiled, like a spring, compressed to its limit. What do you mean? Tori set down the water cup. Her hands were steady now, strangely steady. She had lived with this secret for 3 years, and the act of finally releasing it brought a calm she had not expected. I need you to listen. All of it. From the beginning. James's voice was barely audible. I am listening. 6 months after we got married, Tori began. The words came slowly at first, then faster, like water through a breaking dam. I asked him to come to my nonprofit's fundraiser. It was our annual gala. I had been planning it for months. I was so excited. I asked Derek to come, and he said he was too busy with work. I said it was important to me. She paused. The monitor beeped. He threw his phone at the wall. It shattered. Glass everywhere. Tori closed her eyes. He looked at the glass on the floor. Then he looked at me and said, "Look what you made me do." "What did you do?" James asked. His voice was carefully controlled, a man holding himself together by sheer willpower. I cleaned up the glass. I apologized. I told myself he was under a lot of pressure at work, that it was just a bad day, that everyone has bad days. When was the next time? Tori kept her eyes closed. The memories were easier to tell without seeing her father's face. 3 months later. I wanted to visit you for Christmas, Derek said. We had to spend it with his mother. I said maybe we could split the holidays, do Christmas Eve with Margaret and Christmas Day with you. She paused again. He punched a hole in the wall next to my head, 6 inches to the left, and he would have hit me. The monitor beeped. Rain began to fall outside, tapping gently against the window. Year 2, the objects he threw started getting closer to me. A glass that shattered near my feet. A plate that hit the counter right next to where I was standing. He never hit me with them, not directly, but they got closer every time, and it was always the same line. Look what you made me do. Did you tell anyone? James asked. I told Becca once. She said I should leave. I got defensive. I said she did not understand, that every marriage has rough patches, that Derek was under so much pressure running his company that I just needed to be more patient with him. Tori opened her eyes and looked at her father. I did not talk to Becca for 3 months after that conversation. Derek was so happy when we stopped speaking. He said Becca was a bad influence, that she was jealous of our lifestyle, that she was trying to break up our marriage. James stood up abruptly. He walked to the window and stared out at the rain. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. His shoulders trembled. What happened in year 3? He asked without turning around. He twisted my wrist during an argument. He grabbed it and bent it backward until I heard something pop. He said it was an accident, said he did not realize how hard he was gripping. I had to wear a brace for 2 weeks. I told everyone I slipped on the stairs, told Dr. Hoffman the same thing. Tori touched her belly. That was when I found out I was pregnant. And you thought a baby would make things better, James said softly. I thought maybe it would calm him down, give him something to focus on besides work and me and everything I was doing wrong. She laughed bitterly. I was not stupid, Dad. I knew I was being stupid. Does that make sense? Yes, James said quietly. It makes perfect sense. Tori continued, and now the words came in a flood. I made excuses for everything, every thrown object, every hole in the wall, every time his hand got too rough or his words cut too deep. I had a reason for all of it. Work stress, family pressure, my fault for not being good enough, thin enough, quiet enough. The pregnancy made it worse. He hated that I was getting bigger, hated that I was tired all the time, hated that I could not drink at his business dinners or wear the clothes he wanted me to wear. He said I was letting myself go. Said I was embarrassing him. Did he ever hit you? Before last night? Not with a closed fist, but he grabbed me, pushed me, squeezed my arms hard enough to leave bruises I had to cover with long sleeves and makeup. Tori's voice dropped to a whisper. Last month, he shoved me into the kitchen counter. I hit so hard that I could not breathe for a minute. I told Dr. Hoffman I tripped over the cat. We do not even have a cat. James turned from the window. Tears were running down his face, but his expression was not sad. It was something else entirely. Something cold and hard and absolute. I should have seen it, he said. I should have known. I did not want you to know. Derek isolated me really well. Every time I tried to make plans with you, he would schedule something else. A business trip. A dinner party. His mother visiting. There was always a reason why I could not see you. When was the last time we had lunch? Just the two of us? Tori thought about it. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the rain and the monitor, before the wedding. 3 years ago. James closed his eyes. 3 years. His daughter had been living in a war zone for 3 years, and he had not noticed. He had been so busy building his own fortune, so caught up in his own world, that he had missed every sign, the canceled lunches, the long sleeves in summer, the way she flinched when Derek touched her in public, so subtle that only someone paying close attention would notice. And he had not been paying close attention. I am going to fix this, baby girl. I promise you that. How? He is a billionaire, Dad. He has lawyers and PR people and connections everywhere. James sat back down next to the bed. He took his daughter's hand. And I have $800 million and 30 years of connections in this city. I know every investor, every board member, every person who matters in Derek's world. His voice was cold and calm, the voice of a man who had built a fortune from nothing, who had clawed his way up from a 2-bedroom apartment in a blue-collar neighborhood to the top of the financial world, a man who understood power and how to use it. I am going to take everything from him, James said. Every last piece. Within 2 hours of Tori's confession, James Caldwell's guest house had transformed into a war room. Papers covered every surface. 3 cell phones, charged on the counter. Coffee grew cold in mugs nobody remembered pouring. Diane Sullivan arrived first, James's chief investment officer for 15 years. She was the kind of woman who could calculate compound interest in her sleep and read a balance sheet the way most people read a novel. She carried a leather portfolio and the expression of someone who had already done 3 hours of research before breakfast. I pulled Derek Ashford's financials, Diane said, setting the portfolio on the table and pulling out a tablet. Everything publicly available, and a few things that are not. How did you get the private information? James asked. I have my sources. Diane's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Derek's net worth is approximately $2.3 billion. Most of it is tied up in his tech company, Ashford Innovations. He has a diversified portfolio of real estate, stocks, and offshore holdings. She swiped through several screens of data. The interesting part is that his company went public 3 years ago. That means he is beholden to shareholders and a board of directors. If his stock price drops significantly, he loses control of his own company. What would cause the stock to drop? Tori asked from the couch. She had insisted on being part of the planning, despite her father's protests that she should rest. Scandal, loss of investor confidence, criminal charges, any combination of those things. Diane looked at James. Here's the other thing. I have contacts inside Ashford Innovations. There is a man named Gregory Whitman, Derek's business manager, for 10 years. My people tell me he has been wanting out for months. He knows everything, James. Where the money goes, where it comes from, which accounts are hidden, but he is terrified. Derek's people have been watching him. Set up a meeting. James said. Off the record. Somewhere safe. He is not going to come willingly. Derek has people following his family. His oldest daughter was followed to school last week. Then we offer him bafush protection, security detail for his family. Whatever it takes. Marcus Webb arrived next. The journalist had been up all night, dark circles under his eyes, laptop bag over his shoulder. He sat down at the table without preamble. I have been working on a story about Derek for 6 months, Marcus said. Corporate fraud, embezzlement, questionable business practices. I had pieces of the puzzle, but never enough to publish. Until now. He opened his laptop. I tracked down 6 women who dated Derek before Tori. 4 refused to speak. 1 left the country, but there is one, Jennifer Torres. She signed a non-disclosure agreement 5 years ago. He broke her wrist, paid her $500,000 to disappear. She is living under a different name in a small town 2 states away. Can you find her? Tori asked. I already know where she is. Convincing her to talk is the challenge. She is scared. She has built a new life. She does not want to go back to being Derek Ashford's victim. Tell her that if she does not talk, there will be more victims, Tori said quietly. Tell her to look at the video. Tell her to look at my belly and his hands on my throat, and then ask her if she can live with saying nothing. Marcus met her eyes. I will. The last piece of the team arrived that afternoon. Catherine Mills, divorce attorney, 55 years old, known in legal circles as the executioner. She had a reputation for destroying abusive husbands in court, and she had the track record to prove it. 12 consecutive custody victories in domestic violence cases. 0 losses. Catherine sat down, reviewed the evidence assembled so far, and immediately laid out the ticking clock that would define everything that followed. Listen to me carefully, she said. All of you, Tori is due in 4 weeks. We need to file for emergency custody before that baby is born. Once the child arrives, Derek can file for immediate access. If he files first, a judge could grant him temporary custody while the case is decided. We cannot let that happen. She looked at Tori. I pulled some strings. We have Judge Patricia Brennan assigned to the case. She has a zero-tolerance policy on domestic violence. But Brennan is also scrupulously fair. She will not rule in our favor on emotion alone. We need evidence that is bulletproof. 4 weeks, Tori. That is all we have. For the first time since the gala, something that felt almost like hope flickered in Tori's chest. She had a team. She had a plan. She had people willing to fight for her. But hope, she had learned, was a dangerous thing. Hope made you let your guard down. Hope made you believe that things might actually work out. Derek's counterattack came 48 hours later. It was coordinated, professional, brutal. First, Tori's medical records appeared on gossip websites. Not her real records. Fabricated notes about emotional instability, suicidal ideation, and paranoid delusions. A psychologist who had never met Tori, never treated her, never been in the same room with her, appeared on a morning talk show expressing concerns about postpartum psychosis risk. Then Derek froze all their joint bank accounts, checking, savings, credit cards, investment accounts, everything. Tori opened her banking app with shaking hands and stared at her personal account balance. $300. That was everything she had in the world. The hashtag Gold Digger began trending worldwide. Thousands of people who had never met her, never spoken to her, never spent a single minute in her presence were calling her a liar, a manipulator, a woman who trapped a good man with a pregnancy and was now trying to destroy him. Someone sent a photo to her phone. A surveillance photo of Tori leaving Dr. Hoffman's office, taken from across the street with a long lens. Below it, a message. We are watching you. Come home. And then the worst blow landed. Derek's lawyers sent a cease and desist letter to Dr. Hoffman's medical practice, threatening a lawsuit for allegedly releasing confidential patient information. They demanded that she recant her preliminary assessment of Tori's injuries. They suggested, in the careful language of legal threats, that perhaps the injuries were self-inflicted. Diane called James that evening. Her voice was flat with defeat. Gregory Whitman backed out. Derek's people got to him. Someone followed his daughter to school again. His wife is threatening to leave him if he cooperates with us. He is too scared to talk. James hung up the phone. He stood in his study and stared at the wall for a long time. Then he called Catherine. They are targeting everyone, he said. Everyone who helps her becomes a target. That is how abusers operate, Catherine replied. They isolate. They threaten. They make the cost of resistance higher than the cost of surrender. In her room in the guest house, Tori lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The hope that had flickered to life that morning was gone, snuffed out like a candle in a hurricane. She picked up her phone at 2 a.m. Dad, can I sleep in the main house tonight? I do not want to be alone. Of course. Come over right now. She walked the short path between the guest house and the main house. The night was cold and clear. Stars scattered across a black sky. Normal sounds of the city in the distance. A dog barking, a car alarm, the whisper of wind through trees. But Tori felt eyes on her, watching, following. She walked faster. The ticking clock read 26 days, days blurred together in a haze of anxiety and exhaustion. Tori stopped leaving her father's property. There was no reason to go outside, and plenty of reasons not to. News vans camped outside the gate. 20, sometimes 30. Reporters shouting questions every time the gate opened. Paparazzi hiding in bushes, with telephoto lenses, photographing her through windows. Protesters with signs that read "Derek is innocent" and "Gold digger." Someone left a dead rat on the doorstep. A real rat, body stiff, eyes glazed. A note tied to its tail with string. "Gold digger." James found it before Tori did. He threw it away without saying anything, but she saw his hands shaking. Tori retreated to the nursery her father had set up in the guest house. She painted the walls a soft yellow. She organized tiny clothes by size and color and season. She folded and refolded baby blankets until the edges were perfect. She built the crib herself, even though she was 8.5 months pregnant and could barely reach the screws, because building something felt like the only productive thing she could do. Becca found her one afternoon sitting on the nursery floor surrounded by baby socks. 2 nearly identical white pairs. One had pink trim, the other had pink polka dots. They were almost the same, but not quite, and Tori had been sorting them for 2 hours. "Tori, what are you doing?" Becca stood in the doorway with takeout bags and concern written across her face. "Organizing." Tori held up the socks. "These ones have pink trim. These ones have pink polka dots. They should not be mixed together." "Okay. But you have been organizing those same socks for 2 hours. I need them to be right." Becca set down the takeout bags. She lowered herself to the floor beside her friend, sitting cross-legged among the piles of tiny clothes. She took the socks gently from Tori's hands and set them aside. "Talk to me. Really talk to me." Tori's hands immediately reached for another drawer to sort. Becca stopped her. "Tori, I am fine. I just need everything to be organized before the baby comes. I need to have control over something." Her voice cracked. "Because I cannot control anything else." And then it all came pouring out. The news is saying I am crazy. Derek's lawyers are threatening to take my baby. His mother is on television every day calling me a liar. Someone left a dead rat on Dad's doorstep yesterday with a note, and She pressed her hands against her eyes. I cannot stop organizing these stupid socks. She was crying now. Not the quiet, controlled tears she had shed in the hospital. Real crying, ugly crying, the kind that came from a place so deep it felt like drowning. Becca pulled her into a hug. You are not fine, and that is okay. You do not have to be fine right now. I am supposed to be strong. For the baby, for my dad, for everyone who is helping me. Being strong does not mean not breaking down. It means breaking down and then getting back up. Becca held her tighter. Let yourself fall apart for a minute. I have got you. Tori sobbed into her best friend's shoulder. All the fear and anger and grief she had been holding back for weeks poured out of her. She cried for the marriage she had thought she would have, for the man she had thought Derek was, for the woman she had been before she became Mrs. Ashford, for the future she had imagined that would never exist now. When the tears finally stopped, she felt emptied out, hollow, but also somehow lighter. That night at 3 in the morning, Tori could not sleep. The baby was doing gymnastics in her belly. She got out of bed and walked to the nursery. The room was dark, except for moonlight through the window. She sat in the rocking chair and looked around at everything she had prepared. The crib with its soft yellow blankets, the changing table stocked with diapers, the bookshelf full of picture books she had chosen one by one, imagining herself reading them aloud to her daughter on quiet evenings. She had done all of this imagining Derek would be here, that they would be a family, that he would hold their daughter and suddenly become the man she had always hoped he could be. I am sorry, Tori said to her belly. I am so sorry I chose him. The baby kicked in response. Tori picked up a tiny onesie, white with yellow ducks. She folded it carefully, then unfolded it and folded it again. Her hands needed something to do. I used to run marathons before I met your father. Did you know that? I ran 3 marathons in 2 years. I was training for a 4th when I met Derek at a fundraiser. He was charming, magnetic. Everyone in the room wanted to talk to him, and he was talking to me. Fold, unfold, fold again. He said marathons were a waste of time, that I should focus on more important things, things that mattered to us, to our future. So I stopped running. I gave away my running shoes. I canceled my race registrations. I told myself it was a sacrifice I was making for love. She set down the onesie and picked up another one. Tiny socks, impossibly small. I used to have friends, lots of them. I had lunch dates and book clubs and girls' nights every other Friday. Derek said my friends were a bad influence, that they did not understand our lifestyle, that they were jealous of what we had. One by one, I stopped seeing them, until only Becca was left, and I almost lost her too. I used to have opinions about politics and charity, work, and what restaurant we should go to for dinner. Derek said my opinions made me sound stupid, that I embarrassed him when I spoke up, so I stopped having opinions. I just agreed with whatever he said, about everything. She realized she was crying again, silent tears running down her face in the moonlight. I used to be someone. Baby girl. I was Victoria Caldwell. I ran nonprofits. I helped people. I was smart and capable and strong. Then I became Mrs. Derek Ashford, and I forgot how to be Victoria. A memory surfaced. Her mother's last conversation. They had been sitting in a hospital room, much like the one Tori had woken up in after the gala. Her mother's hand was frail, almost translucent, the skin paper thin over bone. Cancer had taken almost everything, but not her eyes. Her eyes were still fierce. Baby girl, promise me something. Anything, Mom. Never let anyone make you small. The world will try. Men will try. Even other women will try. They will want you to shrink yourself down to make them comfortable. Do not do it. Take up space. Use your voice. Be big and loud and unapologetically yourself. I promise, Mom. But she had broken that promise. She had let Derek make her small. She had shrunk herself down until there was almost nothing left. Tori stood up from the rocking chair. She walked to the window and looked out at the rain. Her reflection stared back at her. Tired eyes, bruises fading on her throat, a pregnant belly that seemed impossibly large, but she was still here, still standing, still breathing. I broke my promise, she said to her mother's memory, but I can fix it. I can be big again, for both of us. The ticking clock read 22 days, and somewhere in the back of her mind, an idea was forming, something nobody had suggested, something nobody would expect, something she would do entirely on her own. Tori could not sleep. She lay in bed at 4 in the morning, scrolling through her phone while the baby shifted and kicked. She was thinking about something Diane had mentioned in passing during their first meeting. Gregory Whitman had let slip, before he backed out, that Derek had a mistress, a model, company money, paying her rent, expensive gifts, a luxury apartment downtown. Tori opened Instagram. She searched Derek's public account. It was polished and curated. Photos of him at charity events, at conferences, at his gleaming office. Nothing out of place. She searched his tagged photos, his following list. Nothing obvious. Then she remembered. Derek always had a second phone. He kept it in the safe in his home office. She had seen him check it late at night when he thought she was asleep. She had never asked about it because she knew better than to ask Derek questions he did not want to answer. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Tori stared at it, her heart hammering. She answered. A woman's voice, older, shaking, as if the person on the other end was terrified of being heard. Check his second account. The username has DA and numbers. The line went dead before Tori could respond. She stared at the phone for a long time. She did not know who had called, but the voice had been familiar, in a way she could not place. Not someone she knew well. Someone she had heard before, perhaps on television or across a crowded room. She started searching. DA2019, DA private, DA8834, account after account, none of them right. Then she found it. A private account with 3 followers. One of them was a model named Amber Collins. Tori scrolled through Amber's public page. She was 26. Beautiful in the way that professional models are beautiful, all sharp angles and practiced poses. She lived in a luxury apartment downtown. Her recent posts showed expensive gifts, designer bags, trips to Aspen, dinners at restaurants, where a single meal cost more than Tori had in her bank account. All paid for by Derek. All paid for with company money. Tori did not tell anyone what she was doing. Not her father, not Catherine, not Becca. She sent Amber a direct message. My name is Victoria Ashford. I am Derek's wife. I am not angry at you. I need to talk. It is about your safety. 2 days passed. Tori checked her phone constantly, convinced that Amber would ignore her, or worse, tell Derek. Then a reply. One word. Where? They met at a cafe 15 miles from the city. Tori wore sunglasses and a baseball cap. She felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad spy movie. But she also felt something else. Something she had not felt in years. Agency. She was doing something, not waiting for someone to save her, not relying on her father's money, or Catherine's legal expertise, or Marcus's journalism. She was taking action herself. Amber was already there when Tori arrived. She was smaller in person than she looked in photos. Thinner. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes were wary, defensive. Um, the eyes of a woman who expected an attack. "You are just a jealous wife trying to ruin his life," Amber said before Tori even sat down. Tori said nothing. She sat down. She pulled out her phone. She opened the gala video, and she set it on the table between them. No commentary, no explanation, just the footage. Amber watched Derek's hands close around Tori's pregnant throat, watched her struggle, watched her body go limp, watched the waiters pull him off, watched Tori crumple to the marble floor. The video ended. Amber had not moved. "He did this to me," Tori said quietly. "He will do it to you. It is only a matter of time. Has he checked your phone yet? Has he told you which friends are bad influences? Has he criticized what you wear? Has he said, 'Look what you made me do'?" Amber's face changed. Something flickered across it. Recognition, fear, the beginnings of understanding. She stood up without saying a word and walked out of the cafe. Tori sat alone for a long time. She drank her tea. She felt the baby kick. She wondered if she had just made a terrible mistake. She had not. 2 weeks later, when Derek started monitoring Amber's phone, when he started questioning where she went and who she talked to, when he started criticizing her friends and telling her that her modeling career was a joke and that she was nothing without him, Amber would call Tori, and she would have financial records showing every dollar Derek had spent on her through company accounts, receipts for the apartment, credit card statements for the gifts, wire transfers for the trips, SEISA evidence that Gregory had been too scared to provide. But that was 2 weeks away. Right now, the ticking clock read 20 days, and Tori had other battles to fight. While Tori was finding Amber, James and Diane were working on Gregory. Diane arranged a second meeting at a diner 60 miles from the city, a place where nobody would recognize them. Gregory arrived looking like a man who had not slept in a month. "They threatened my daughters, James. Someone followed my oldest to school again. A black car just sat there in the parking lot for 2 hours. My wife is terrified. She wants us to leave the state. I will provide security for your family," James said. "Private detail, 24/7, for as long as you need it. I will pay for everything. You do not understand." Derek does not just threaten. He follows through. So do I. Diane slid a folder across the table. "Gregory, listen to me carefully. The SEC is already sniffing around. They have been looking at Ashford Innovations' quarterly reports for months. Irregularities in the numbers. With or without your testimony, they will find the offshore accounts eventually. When they do, you will be implicated as an accomplice. You manage those accounts. You sign those wire transfers. Your name is on those documents." Gregory's face went white. "You can cooperate now," Diane continued. "Negotiate immunity. Be on the right side of this before it all comes down. Or you can wait, and you can go to prison alongside Derek." Gregory stared at the folder. His hands were shaking so badly that the coffee in his mug rippled. 3 days later, he met James in a parking garage on the far side of town. He looked over his shoulder the entire time. He handed James a USB drive. $200 million in embezzlement, Gregory said. Offshore account numbers, wire transfer records, emails where Derek explicitly discusses hiding money from investors and the SEC. It is all there, everything. He paused. His eyes were red. "I have 2 daughters. I cannot look at them anymore knowing I am helping a monster." His hands were still shaking when he walked away. The ticking clock read 18 days. Catherine Mills filed a subpoena for Tori's complete medical records from Dr. Hoffman. It was a standard legal procedure, a court order requiring the doctor to provide the files. At the same time, Derek's lawyers served Dr. Hoffman with a cease and desist letter, threatening to destroy her career if she complied with the subpoena. Dr. Hoffman consulted her own attorney. The answer was clear. A court subpoena had legal authority over a private cease and desist letter. She was legally obligated to comply, but compliance would come at a cost. Derek's lawyers would file complaints with the medical board. They would drag her through hearings. They would cost her hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. They would try to take her license. Dr. Hoffman sat alone in her office that evening. She looked at the file on her desk. 3 years of documented injuries, photos she had taken with Tori's permission, clinical notes describing bruises that did not match the explanations, the number of times Tori had flinched when she touched her arm, the way Tori's pulse raced during examinations, not from medical anxiety, but from the constant state of hypervigilance that came from living with violence. She picked up her pen. She signed the release form. Her hand trembled, just slightly, but she signed it. The next day, Tori's complete medical file was submitted to the court. The real one. Every photo, every note, every documented injury across 3 years, and the cervical bruising from the strangulation that would later nearly kill her during delivery. The ticking clock read 15 days. Marcus Webb spent a week tracking down Jennifer Torres. He found her in a small town, 2 states away, living under a different name. She worked as a second-grade teacher. She had a small house with a garden and a golden retriever. She had built a quiet, normal life from the wreckage of what Derek Ashford had done to her. The first time Marcus knocked on her door, she opened it 2 inches and left the chain on. I signed an NDA. I cannot talk about it. $500,000. That is what your silence cost. Meanwhile, he is still hurting women. He strangled his pregnant wife on camera. I know. I saw the video. Jennifer's voice was flat, exhausted. The voice of a woman who had spent 5 years trying to forget. Then help me stop him. I will lose the money. He will sue me. He will send people after me. You do not know what he is like. Marcus left. He drove 2 hours back to the city. He lay awake all night thinking about Jennifer's face through the cracked door. The fear in her eyes, the way she held herself, shoulders hunched, arms crossed, making herself small. He went back a week later. This time he brought printed photos from the gala footage. 8x10 glossy prints, Tori's pregnant belly, Derek's hands on her throat. Her face contorted in terror. Jennifer opened the door wider this time. She stared at the photos for a very long time. Her hands were trembling. She is pregnant, Jennifer whispered. 8 months. He did the same thing to me. The choking. I thought I was going to die that night. I really thought it was over. He broke my wrist when I tried to fight back, snapped it like a twig. Then he drove me to the hospital and told them I fell off a horse. Who falls off a horse in Manhattan? Jennifer sat down slowly on her front steps. The golden retriever came and pressed against her legs. I will break the NDA. I do not care about the money, but I want you to print my real name. I am done hiding from him. The ticking clock read 12 days. Back in the city, Derek's lawyers filed for prenatal custody. They were claiming Tori was an unfit mother before her baby was even born. 3 psychiatrists who had never met Tori submitted evaluations diagnosing her with borderline personality disorder and postpartum psychosis risk. The evaluations were fiction, written by doctors Derek had paid, based on fabricated information Derek had provided. Simultaneously, Derek held a press conference announcing a massive charitable donation to children's cancer research. The cameras captured him standing at a podium with tears in his eyes, looking humble and generous and deeply misunderstood. In light of recent personal difficulties, I want to refocus on what truly matters: helping children in need. My wife and I have had our struggles, but I want to move forward with grace and compassion. He said, my wife, as if they were still together, as if he had not tried to kill her. The public narrative shifted. Comments flooded social media. Maybe she is unstable. He seems so genuine. She probably provoked him. Every marriage has two sides. Catherine called an emergency meeting. He is not just fighting the custody case, he is rewriting reality. And it is working. We need to file our petition tonight. And Marcus, that article needs to drop now, before he controls the narrative completely. But here was the despair that kept Tori awake at night. To win, she would eventually have to testify. She would have to sit in a courtroom and describe every detail of 3 years of abuse, while Derek sat 10 feet away. The man who strangled her would be watching her tell the world how he strangled her. Tori vomited in the bathroom. Becca held her hair back. I cannot do this, Tori said, her face pressed against the cool tile of the bathroom floor. You can. You have survived worse than a courtroom. Have I? That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Tori did something no one expected. She picked up her phone. She opened the recording app she had downloaded in the hospital days ago, and she called Derek. Her hands were shaking so badly, she almost dropped the phone. But she dialed the number. She pressed it to her ear. She waited. Derek answered on the second ring. His voice changed instantly when he heard her. The investor voice, the charming voice, the voice that fooled everyone. Victoria, I am glad you called. I have been worried about you. I have been thinking about what you said, about coming home. That is all I want. For our family to be together. You and me and our little girl, the way it was supposed to be. Tori kept her voice steady. Every word was calculated. She had rehearsed this conversation in her mind 100 times. She knew exactly which buttons to push. She knew Derek better than anyone, and she knew that his greatest weakness was his inability to resist gloating. But I need to know something first. If I come back, what happens to the people helping me? My dad? My lawyer? Derek's mask slipped, just for a moment. But a moment was all she needed. Your father is going to regret what he started. I will bury him. Catherine Mills will never practice law again. I have people pulling her financials right now, looking for anything we can use. And that reporter, Marcus Webb, I have already got people looking into his background. Everyone who crossed me is going to pay. What about Gregory? He quit. Gregory is a dead man walking. He thinks he can hide? I know where his daughters go to school. Lincoln Elementary, 3rd grade and 5th grade. I know their names. I know what time they get picked up. Tori's hands were shaking so violently she thought she might drop the phone, but her voice stayed even, perfectly controlled, the performance of her life. Okay, I understand. I just needed to know. So you will come home? I will think about it. She hung up. She saved the recording. She sat in the dark for 5 minutes, breathing. Then she forwarded the file to Catherine with a single message. He threatened Gregory's children by name. He threatened Dad. He threatened you. He threatened Marcus. All on recording. Catherine called her back within 60 seconds. Where did you get this? I called him. I recorded it. Silence on the other end. Tori, Catherine said slowly, this is witness intimidation. Threatening minors. Criminal behavior documented in his own voice. This is going to play in a courtroom, and he will not be able to explain it away. Good, Tori said. She had done this herself. No one had told her to. No one had planned it. She had weaponized the one thing Derek never expected. Her willingness to hear his threats one more time. Her willingness to walk back into the fire and come out carrying the evidence that would burn him. The ticking clock read 10 days. At 9 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, Marcus Webb's article went live on the website of one of the country's largest national newspapers. The headline read, The Real Derek Ashford. a pattern of violence, abuse, and financial crime. It was the product of 6 months of investigation, compressed into 12,000 devastating words. 4 ex-girlfriends on record, all describing identical patterns. The charm that drew you in, the isolation that cut you off, the control that defined every hour of every day, the violence that escalated until you could not recognize your own life. Jennifer Torres was quoted extensively. She described the night Derek broke her wrist in graphic detail, the sound it made, the way he stood over her while she screamed, the drive to the hospital where he held her hand tenderly and told the doctors she had fallen off a horse. The $500,000 check he wrote the next morning, still in his pajamas, as casually as if he were paying a parking ticket. The NDA his lawyers presented before the painkillers wore off. I signed it because I was terrified, Jennifer said. I signed it because he told me he would destroy my life if I did not, and then I spent 5 years pretending none of it happened. But it happened, and I know it happened to others after me. That is what I cannot live with. 3 former employees described workplace violence, a laptop thrown at an intern's head during a presentation that did not meet Derek's standards. A female assistant verbally abused so relentlessly that she quit without notice and later filed for disability due to post-traumatic stress. Explosive rages behind closed doors that left furniture broken and staff cowering. The financial evidence from Gregory was laid bare. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. Wire transfers totaling over $200 million. Emails in which Derek explicitly discussed hiding money from investors and deceiving the SEC. Quarterly reports that had been falsified to conceal the theft. The article included stills from the gala security footage. Derek's hands around Tori's throat, her pregnant belly clearly visible, her face contorted in terror, the moments before the waiters pulled him off. Gregory was quoted, "I worked for Derek Ashford for 10 years. I watched him become a monster. I watched him hurt people and pay them off. I watched him steal from his own company, and I did nothing because I was afraid. But I am not afraid anymore. The truth needs to be told." Within 1 hour, the article had been shared 10,000 times. Within 2 hours, Ashford Innovations issued a statement denying everything and threatening legal action. Within 3 hours, 2 more women came forward with their own stories of abuse. By midnight, Ashford Innovations stock had dropped 15%. Derek left a voicemail on Tori's phone. She did not answer. She let it record. "That article is full of lies. I will sue that reporter into poverty. I will take our daughter, and you will never see her again." Tori saved the voicemail. More evidence. Every word he spoke dug his grave deeper, and he was too arrogant to realize it. The custody hearing began 8 days before Tori's due date. 3 days in Judge Brennan's courtroom. Day 1. Catherine presented the evidence. Medical records from Dr. Hoffman, 3 years of documented injuries, clinical photographs showing bruises on arms, ribs, wrists, notes describing a patient who flinched at unexpected touch, documentation of cervical bruising from the strangulation at the gala, witness statements from 17 people who had been at the gala, all of them describing the assault in graphic detail. Several mentioned that Derek had been drinking heavily throughout the evening. 2 said they had heard him making threatening comments about Tori earlier in the night. The security footage, played on the courtroom's large screen. No sound, just the silent, undeniable images. Derek following Tori, his hands on her throat, her body going limp, the waiters pulling him off, Tori collapsing to the floor. Gregory Whitman's financial testimony, bank statements, wire transfers, email chains, $200 million that could not be accounted for through legitimate business operations. Jennifer Torres, on the witness stand, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. The broken wrist, the NDA, the payoff. The 5 years of silence and shame, 3 former employees describing explosive rages and workplace violence. And then Catherine played Tori's recording, Derek's own voice filling the courtroom, threatening her father, threatening her lawyer, threatening Marcus Webb, threatening Gregory's children by name. The courtroom went completely silent. Even Derek's lawyers stopped writing. Day 2, Derek's defense. 3 psychiatrists who had never met Tori were dismissed by Judge Brennan within minutes. Unless you have personally evaluated Mrs. Ashford, I am not interested in your speculation about her mental health. Margaret Ashford took the stand. She wore a simple black dress and pearls, the picture of dignified motherhood. She described Tori as difficult, controlling, manipulative. Then Catherine played Margaret's own video from the gala. The footage Margaret had shot on her phone while her son strangled his pregnant wife, the camera shaking slightly, the hallway, Derek's hands, Tori's body. Margaret filming it all. You recorded your son attempting to murder his wife, Catherine said, and you did nothing. You did not call for help. You did not try to stop him. You did not put down the phone. You just kept filming. I was in shock, Margaret whispered. Or perhaps you were gathering footage to use against Victoria later. Margaret's composure shattered. She had no answer. Day 3. Judge Brennan reviewed everything. Then she delivered her ruling. The evidence presented by Mrs. Ashford's legal team is overwhelming and deeply disturbing. Multiple witnesses testified to a consistent pattern of violent, controlling, and abusive behavior by Derek Ashford spanning more than a decade. Medical evidence confirms years of physical abuse. Video evidence shows a clear and undeniable attempt to strangle Mrs. Ashford while she was 8 months pregnant. Judge Brennan looked directly at Derek. Mr. Ashford, I find your defense to be insulting to this court's intelligence. You attempted to murder your wife in front of hundreds of witnesses. You then used your wealth and influence to launch a smear campaign against the victim. You fabricated medical records. You paid people to lie for you. And you stood in my courtroom today and continued to lie. She turned to Tori. Mrs. Ashford, I am granting your petition in full. You will have sole legal and physical custody of your daughter upon her birth. Mr. Ashford will be allowed supervised visitation only. 1 hour per month in a secure facility with a court-appointed supervisor present. This arrangement will be reviewed after 1 year. Furthermore, I am issuing an emergency protective order. Derek Ashford is not to come within 500 feet of Victoria Ashford at any time. He is not to contact her directly or indirectly. Any violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. I am also referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Prosecution. What you did to your wife was attempted murder. You should be in jail, not standing in my courtroom making demands. The gavel came down. Tori collapsed into Catherine's arms, sobbing with relief that shook her entire body. James wrapped both of them in a hug, so tight it almost hurt. Becca was crying. Even Catherine, who had seen 100 courtroom victories, had tears in her eyes. She had won. It was over. Charlotte was safe. The ticking clock read 3 days until the due date. They had made it just in time, 2 days after the custody hearing. At 3:17 in the morning, Tori woke up with a contraction so intense it took her breath away. She lay in bed for 10 minutes, timing them on her phone. 5 minutes apart, then 4, then 3. This was not false labor. This was real. She called her father. He answered on the first ring. He had barely been sleeping since the gala anyway. "Dad, I think it is time. I am coming right now. Do not move." 10 minutes later, James was at her door with a pre-packed hospital bag they had prepared weeks ago. Everything ready, everything planned, except nothing was ready. Nothing was planned, because what happened next, nobody could have prepared for. At the hospital, Dr. Hoffman was waiting. She had been on call specifically for Tori's delivery. "You are at 7 centimeters already," Dr. Hoffman said, after a quick examination. "This baby is coming fast." They moved Tori to a private delivery room. James stayed close, holding her hand through each contraction. Becca arrived 20 minutes later, slightly out of breath. Sorry. I drove as fast as I could. How is she doing?" "Good." "The epidural is helping. The labor progressed quickly. Too quickly." At 9 centimeters, Dr. Hoffman's expression changed. She called for additional nurses. She lowered her voice when she spoke to the anesthesiologist. But Tori heard the words that mattered. "The cervical bruising from the strangulation is causing complications. She is hemorrhaging." Everything happened fast after that. The room filled with people. Monitors started beeping with a different sound, faster, more urgent. Dr. Hoffman made the decision within 30 seconds. "We need an emergency C-section, now." Tori felt the room spinning, felt hands lifting her onto a gurney, felt the cold air of the operating room, felt the epidural being adjusted. She reached out blindly and found her father's hand. "Is the baby okay? Dad, is the baby okay?" "The baby is fine. You are going to be fine. I am right here." Charlotte was born at 4:22 in the morning, tiny, pink, screaming with lungs that were strong and healthy, and completely unaware of the chaos surrounding her arrival. But Tori was not fine. The hemorrhaging was severe. She had lost dangerous amounts of blood. Dr. Hoffman worked frantically. Blood transfusions were called. More machines, more monitors, more people, and scrubs moving with controlled urgency. Tori's vision blurred. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was her father holding Charlotte. His face was a wreck of joy and terror, tears streaming down his cheeks, a newborn baby in his arms, and his daughter bleeding on the operating table. She woke up in the ICU 48 hours later. The room was dim, machines beeped. Her body felt like it belonged to someone else. Every movement was pain. The first thing she saw was a bassinet next to her bed. Charlotte was sleeping inside it. Tiny, perfect, close enough to touch. Tori reached out. Her hand shook. She touched Charlotte's fingers through the bassinet rails. The smallest fingers she had ever seen. Warm, real, alive. She could not lift her daughter. She was too weak, too broken. The drainage tubes and IV lines and monitors would not allow it. For the first 48 hours of Charlotte's life, Tori could only touch her daughter through the bars of a hospital bassinet. She could not hold her, could not nurse her, could not do any of the things she had imagined doing. This is what Derek's violence actually cost. Not money, not reputation, not status. The first moments of a mother holding her child. And then the second catastrophe hit. Catherine Mills appeared at Tori's bedside on the morning of the third day. Her face was grim. "Tori, I need to tell you something." "What happened?" Derek's lawyers filed an emergency motion with a different judge. Not Brennan, a different judge. "They are arguing that your medical crisis proves you are physically unfit to care for a newborn. They are requesting temporary custody transfer to Margaret Ashford." Tori stared at her lawyer. She was lying in an ICU bed. She had drainage tubes in her abdomen. She had lost enough blood to nearly die. She had not held her daughter yet. "We have 24 hours to respond." And the third catastrophe came the same day. Gregory Whitman was found beaten unconscious in a parking garage. His laptop, which contained backup copies of all the financial evidence, was stolen. An anonymous tip to the police suggested a random mugging, but everyone involved knew the truth. Derek might be under a protective order. He might be facing criminal charges. He might be losing his fortune. But he still had people willing to do violence on his behalf. People who would beat a man unconscious in a parking garage and steal his laptop on command. Tori lay in her ICU bed. She could not walk. She could not hold her daughter. Gregory was in a coma down the hall. A different judge was reviewing a motion to take Charlotte. Her father was pacing the hallway, looking older and more defeated than she had ever seen him. Becca brought Charlotte to the bedside, placed the bassinet where Tori could reach. Tori slipped her fingers through the bars and touched Charlotte's tiny hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around hers instinctively. Warm, impossibly small, impossibly strong. "I won the hearing," Tori whispered. "I had the evidence. I had the judge's ruling, and none of it mattered. He is still coming for us. He will never stop." "Then we do not stop either," Catherine said. She set her briefcase on the bedside table. She pulled out a laptop and legal documents. "Can you sign papers?" "I can barely hold a pen." "Then we will figure it out." Catherine's voice was steady, fierce. "We have 24 hours. We are going to use every single minute." Catherine filed the emergency response from Tori's hospital room. She typed it on her laptop while Tori dictated between waves of pain. The core argument was devastating in its simplicity. Mr. Ashford strangled his wife so severely that it caused cervical bruising, leading to delivery complications. He is now using those complications, which he caused, to argue she is unfit. This court should not reward an abuser for the damage he inflicted. The different judge wanted to hear from both sides. He scheduled an emergency hearing for the next morning. Catherine requested that Tori be allowed to appear by video from the ICU. The judge agreed. That night, James visited Tori's room. He closed the door. "I have information," he said, "through Diane's contacts. This new judge has financial ties to one of Derek's investors, a personal investment in one of their funds. We could expose the conflict of interest, get him removed from the case." Tori looked at her father, looked at Charlotte, sleeping in the bassinet. "No," she said. "Tori, that is what Derek does. He uses connections to manipulate the system. If we do it too, we are no better than him. This is not about being better. It is about winning. It is about both, Dad. Charlotte will grow up. She will ask questions. She will want to know how I fought this battle. And I need to be able to look her in the eye and say I did it the right way, that I did not become the thing I was fighting against." James stared at his daughter for a long time. This woman in a hospital bed who could barely sit up, who had nearly died bringing her child into the world, who was fighting for custody from an ICU while the man who put her there was trying to take her baby. "Your mother would be proud of you," he said. The hearing started at 9 the next morning. The courtroom, Derek's lawyers presenting their argument. Tori is physically unfit. Charlotte needs stable care. Margaret Ashford is a suitable, temporary guardian. Derek's chair was empty. His lawyers explained that their client could not attend due to scheduling conflicts. The man who was filing for custody of his newborn daughter could not be bothered to show up. Then the video feed connected. Tori appeared on the courtroom screen. Pale face, hospital gown, IV in her arm, drainage tubes visible beneath the blankets. Behind her, the beeping monitors. And beside her, just visible at the edge of the frame, the bassinet where Charlotte was sleeping. The judge saw a woman who had nearly died giving birth because of injuries inflicted by the man requesting custody. A woman fighting for her daughter from a hospital bed while her husband sent lawyers and stayed home. Tory asked permission to speak directly. The judge granted it. Your Honor, 3 days ago I nearly died giving birth to my daughter. The complications were caused by injuries my husband inflicted when he strangled me at 8 months pregnant. She paused, steadied her breathing. The courtroom was silent. I am speaking to you from an ICU bed. I have not been able to hold my daughter yet. I have not slept in 3 days, but I am here. I will always be here, because that is what mothers do. My husband is not here today. He sent lawyers. He always sends someone else to do what he will not do himself. That is the difference between us. I show up, even when it hurts, even when I am terrified, even when my body is broken, and the machines are beeping and I cannot stand on my own 2 feet. I show up, because my daughter needs me to show up, and I will never stop showing up for her. The courtroom was silent for what felt like a very long time. The judge looked at Derek's empty chair, looked at Tori on the screen, the broken body, the unbroken will, motion denied, full custody remains with Victoria Ashford. 3 days later, Gregory Whitman opened his eyes in a hospital room 2 floors below Tori's. The first thing he said to the police officer at his bedside was this: "Cloud backup. Everything is on the cloud. Password is my daughter's birthdays." The stolen laptop had not mattered. Gregory had backed up every document to encrypted cloud storage before he ever handed the USB to James. Every email, every wire transfer, every offshore account record, every piece of evidence that proved Derek had stolen $210 million from his own company. Derek's people had taken the hardware. They had missed the data. The SEC now had everything they needed. What followed was the systematic destruction of everything Derek Ashford had built, and the simultaneous rebuilding of everything he had tried to destroy. In the first 2 weeks after Charlotte's birth, Tori left the hospital. She spent her first night in her father's house with Charlotte in her arms. She held her daughter for hours. She did not sleep. She did not want to sleep. She wanted to feel the weight of her baby against her chest, the warmth, the breathing, the tiny heartbeat. Federal agents raided Ashford Innovations headquarters. They seized computers and financial records. They interviewed employees. They began building a case that would take months to prosecute, but seconds to understand. Derek Ashford was a thief. In the first 2 months, offshore accounts were frozen. Bank statements were subpoenaed. The evidence was overwhelming. $210 million embezzled over 5 years. Falsified quarterly reports. Lies to shareholders and regulators. Tori applied for her old position at the nonprofit she had run before her marriage. They welcomed her back the same day she applied. Part-time to start, because she had a newborn, because she was still recovering from surgery, because she was rebuilding a life from the ground up. In months 3 and 4, the board of directors called an emergency meeting. The first vote to remove Derek was 7-5. Not enough for a supermajority. Derek lobbied the 5 board members who had voted to keep him. He promised them the investigation would blow over. He promised them the stock would recover. He promised them he was innocent. Diane Sullivan targeted those same 5 board members. She showed each of them, privately and individually, their personal legal liability if they continued to support a CEO under active SEC investigation. She explained in careful detail how their personal assets could be seized, how their names would appear in the press, how their own investors would flee. The second vote was 10-2. Derek Somerset was terminated as CEO of the company his father had started and he had built into a billion-dollar empire. Security guards escorted him from the building. Employees watched in silence as the man who had thrown laptops at interns and screamed at assistants walked past them for the last time. Tori got promoted to director at the nonprofit. Her first paycheck was modest. She used it to buy Charlotte's crib. A real crib, in her own apartment, paid for with her own money. In months 4 through 6, everything Derek owned was seized. The penthouse apartment in Manhattan, the house in the Hamptons, the vacation home in Aspen, the yacht, the fleet of luxury cars, the art collection worth $30 million, all of it liquidated to pay back the money he had stolen. Creditors came after him. Business partners sued for breach of contract. Former employees filed lawsuits for hostile work environment and wrongful termination. The legal fees alone consumed whatever assets the seizures had not reached. His lawyers withdrew from his case. Unpaid bills and irreconcilable differences. Derek was assigned a public defender for his criminal trial. Tori signed a lease on a one-bedroom apartment, small, modest. The kitchen was barely big enough for one person. The bedroom closet was a fraction of the walk and closet she had shared with Derek. The view from the window was a brick wall instead of a city skyline, but every piece of furniture in that apartment was something she had chosen herself. The blue couch, the yellow kitchen chairs, the bookshelf full of picture books for Charlotte, the framed photo of her mother on the dresser. Everything was hers, only hers. And then Amber Collins came forward. She called Tori first, told her everything. Derek had started monitoring her phone just as Tori had predicted. He had started criticizing her friends, her career, her appearance. He had started saying, "Look what you made me do." Amber had financial records showing every dollar Derek had spent on her through company accounts. The apartment lease in his company's name, credit card statements for gifts purchased with corporate funds, wire transfers, for trips charged to the business. The SEC added additional charges, more embezzlement, more fraud. The case against Derek grew deeper and wider and more inescapable with each passing day. Tori spoke at a domestic violence support group for the first time. 15 women in a circle in a church basement. She told her story. Not all of it, but the parts that mattered. "I was lucky," she said. "My father had resources most people do not. He spent everything he had to fight my abuser. Not everyone has that." "So what do we do?" "You save yourself," Tori said. "I know that sounds impossible. I know you are exhausted and scared, but you take one tiny step. You call a hotline. You tell one person the truth. You save $1 in a secret account. You take one step toward the door." She looked around the circle and saw herself in every face. "The door was always unlocked," she said quietly. "I was my own jailer. I stayed because I was afraid. But being afraid and free is better than being afraid and trapped." Then the phone call she had not expected. Margaret Ashford. It was evening. Charlotte was asleep. Tori almost did not answer. "Victoria, please do not hang up." "What do you want?" The anonymous call. "The one about Derek's second account." "That was me." Silence. Tori sat down slowly. "I could not stop him publicly," Margaret said. Her voice was breaking. "I was too afraid, but I could point you in the right direction. Why did you not do more?" "Because I spent 30 years married to a man just like him. Derek's father hit me for 3 decades. I normalized it. I accepted it. I taught my son that violence was how men expressed love. Without ever saying the words, I taught him that. And by the time I realized what I had created, it was too late." Margaret was crying now. "I raised a monster. I see that now. I'm getting help. Therapy. Support groups. I am trying to understand how I became this person." "That does not excuse what you did," Tori said. "Filming me, calling me unstable on television. Nothing excuses it." Tori did not forgive her, but she understood her. Margaret was what Tori could have become if she had stayed another 10 years, another 20, another 30. A woman so deep in the cycle of violence that she could not even recognize it anymore, could only pass it on to the next generation like a disease. The supervised visit happened on a Tuesday. Gray facility, cameras in every corner, fluorescent lights that hummed. A social worker named Linda sat near the door. Tori sat at a table with Charlotte on her lap. Her daughter was 4 months old now, curious, alert, reaching for everything. Derek walked in. Tori barely recognized him. He had lost weight. His hair was unkempt. He wore a cheap suit that did not fit properly. His face was gaunt, dark circles carved beneath his eyes. He looked 10 years older than he had at the gala. He had already been convicted. The trial had lasted 2 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Tori had testified. She sat in the witness chair and told her story clearly and calmly. She pointed to the fading scars on her throat. She looked at the jury and told them the truth, the whole truth, everything she had hidden for 3 years. And the jury had believed her. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for the following week. Derek's eyes went to Charlotte immediately. Something crossed his face. Grief, maybe, or regret, or just the recognition of what he had lost. "She is beautiful," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Can I hold her?" "No." "Victoria, please, she is my daughter. I just want to hold her for 1 minute. You tried to kill her when you had your hands around my throat. You were killing both of us. You do not get to hold her." Derek's jaw clenched. Tori recognized the expression, the anger building, the control slipping, but he could not do anything here. The cameras were recording. Linda was watching. Security was outside the door. He was powerless. "I am sorry," Derek said, "for everything. I was under so much pressure. Work, family expectations. I was not myself. Stop." Tori's voice was firm. "You do not get to do that." "Do what?" "Make excuses. Blame circumstances. Pretend you are someone else. You are yourself, Derek. The man who threw things at me, who twisted my wrist, who isolated me from my friends and family, who tried to strangle me while I was pregnant with your daughter. That is who you really are. I was sick. I needed help. You are not sick. You are abusive. There is a difference. Sick people want to get better. They take responsibility. They change. You did none of those things. Even now, in this room, you are making excuses. You destroyed my life. No, you destroyed your life. Every consequence you are facing is the direct result of your own choices. Your father spent $800 million to ruin me. My father spent $800 million to protect me, to protect Charlotte, because that is what real love looks like. You do not know what love is, Derek. You think love is control, possession, ownership, but it is not. Love is sacrifice. It is protection. It is putting someone else's well-being above your own. Tori shifted Charlotte in her arms. Her daughter was reaching for a toy on the table, completely uninterested in the man sitting across from them. By the time you get out of prison, Charlotte will be an adult. She will know exactly who you are and what you did, and she will make her own choice about whether to have a relationship with you. That is her decision, not mine, not yours. Derek stood up abruptly. The chair scraped against the floor. Linda stepped forward. Security guards moved closer. "I cannot do this," he said. He turned and walked out of the room. The door closed behind him with a hollow thud. Tori walked out of the facility into afternoon sunshine. Becca was waiting by the car. "How do you feel?" Tori thought about it. She had expected to feel triumphant, vindicated, satisfied. She felt none of those things. What she felt was lighter, like a weight she had been carrying for years, a weight she had gotten so used to that she had forgotten it was there, had finally been set down. I feel nothing, she said. And that is exactly right. Catherine texted 1 week later. 25 years. Attempted murder. Embezzlement. Witness intimidation. Sentences consecutive. It is really over. Tori did not go to the sentencing. She was at the park with Charlotte. Her daughter was 7 months old now, crawling on the grass, grabbing fistfuls of dandelions, babbling at birds. Tori read the text. She put her phone away. She pushed the swing. Charlotte laughed. The sound was pure and free and full of everything that mattered. That night, after Charlotte was asleep, Tori sat on the couch in her small apartment and recorded a voice memo on her phone, something for Charlotte to listen to someday when she was old enough to ask questions about her father, when she was old enough to want to know the truth. Hi, baby girl. If you're listening to this, it means you are old enough to want to know the truth about me, about your father, about everything that happened. So here's what I want you to know. Your father was abusive, not because of work stress or family pressure or any external circumstance. He was abusive because he made a choice to hurt people he claimed to love. That was his choice, not mine, not yours, his. I stayed in that relationship for 3 years. I made excuses for him. I explained away every red flag. I thought I could fix him. I thought love was enough. I learned that love is never enough when the other person does not want to change. I also learned that asking for help is not weakness. It is strength. Your grandfather, Becca, Dr. Hoffman, Catherine, Marcus, Gregory. So many people helped me escape. I could not have done it alone, and that is okay. The moment I stopped asking for his permission to save myself was the moment I became free. You are not responsible for your father's actions. His choices have nothing to do with who you are or who you will become. You get to choose your own path. I will never let anyone make you small, and I will teach you to take up space, use your voice, and be unapologetically yourself. That is what your grandmother taught me, and it is what I am teaching you. She stopped the recording and saved it. She would add to it over the years. Build a complete picture, the truth, with no sugarcoating and no bitterness, just facts, just reality, just love. In a prison cell 500 miles away, Derek Ashford sat on a metal cot and stared at a concrete wall. The cell was 6 feet by 8 feet. The light was a fluorescent tube that buzzed constantly. He wore an orange jumpsuit. He had no photos, no letters. No one was coming to visit. His bank account balance was 0. His company was gone. His homes were gone. His cars, his yacht, his art collection, his custom suits, his second phone, his private jet, his name on the side of a building. All gone. 25 years stretched ahead of him. 25 years of concrete walls and cafeteria, food and fluorescent light and silence. He closed his eyes and saw the only image that stayed with him now. The supervised visitation facility, Charlotte on Tori's lap, 4 months old, reaching for a toy, not looking at him, not knowing who he was, not caring that the stranger across the table was her father. By the time he got out, she would be 25 years old. She would know everything. She would have read the articles and the court transcripts. She would have listened to her mother's voice memo. She would know exactly who her father was and what he had done, and she would make her own choice. In a 1-bedroom apartment across the city, at that same moment, Charlotte was pulling herself up on the coffee table. She had been doing this for days, grabbing the edge, hauling herself upward, standing for a few wobbly seconds, then falling down. Every time she fell, she got back up. She was not a baby who cried when she fell. She was a baby who grinned and tried again. On the walls of the apartment, there were photos. Tori's mother holding baby Tori, her face full of love and fierce protectiveness. James holding Charlotte at the hospital, tears on his cheeks and wonder in his eyes. Becca making silly faces while Charlotte giggled. Dr. Hoffman smiling at Charlotte's first checkup. There were no photos of Derek, not a single one. Tori sat on the floor, watching her daughter. Her phone was on the coffee table. A text from Catherine glowed on the screen. Sentencing upheld on appeal. 25 years confirmed. It is really over. Tori read it, set the phone face down on the table, turned back to Charlotte. Charlotte grabbed the edge of the coffee table one more time, pulled herself up, wobbled, steadied, stood. She looked at her mother. She smiled, a big, open, fearless smile. Then she took her first step. James Caldwell spent every dollar he had, $800 million, every penny he had earned over 30 years of building something from nothing. He spent it to destroy the man who tried to kill his daughter. When people asked him if it was worth it, he always said the same thing. That money was never mine. It was always hers. Derek Ashford entered prison with nothing. No fortune, no company, no family, no legacy. Just 25 years of concrete walls and the knowledge that his daughter would grow up calling someone else's house home. And Victoria Caldwell. She dropped the Ashford name the day the divorce was finalized. She went back to the woman she had been before, the one who ran marathons, the one who had opinions, the one who helped people, the one who took up space. She never let anyone make her small again, and neither would her daughter. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.